Hello and welcome to
The Next Level Now. I'm Tamika Leslie.
And I'm Kirk Weber. And today we are going to be talking about a course on leadership. Wow, what an important topic. Something that transcends just business. Leadership is like kind of all kinds of places, isn't it?
You have to lead yourself.
So what is the title of this course that you have for us?
Lead by example.
Lead by example. Well, that kind of tells a whole story in and of itself, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes, it does. Well, Tamika, I would love to ask you some of the questions about this. And I'm going to start off with, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about leadership?
Leadership, the way I've been seeing it lately in the world, is that you can just kind of like the top-down leadership.
Yes.
And I don't think that's actual leadership. And when I say top-down, let me define that, is where, the top person in charge, the CEO or the top leader kind of makes the decisions, and then everything else, it kind of trickles down from there. Leadership actually starts, in my opinion, from, I don't want to say the bottom up, but from the people that you wouldn't think are in charge.
That's a interesting concept. I like it. So what you're telling me is my dad's style of leadership, I spoke it, so therefore it is not necessarily good leadership.
It works in certain situations, like in an emergency situation where, yes, that would need to be how it is.
Like raising a child.
Possibly, yes. But I do think, and in my experience, my own personal experience, I think that when people at the bottom levels feel seen and heard, now you start to have morale is raised, people start to contribute more.
That's a very interesting concept. I like it. Could you give me a real life example of maybe how you've employed that somewhere along the line?
Well, I'll tell you where I learned it from.
Okay, that'll work.
The foundation of my leadership, because I spent my career in retail management, I learned the basics from Nordstrom.
Really?
We've all heard of the store Nordstrom.
Right.
Maybe you haven't shopped there, but you've heard of it. And they've been around for over 100 years. And I was privileged and so grateful to have taken they called it MIT, Manager in Training, back then. This was in 2004. And I had the privilege of taking this 30-day course, and they taught you everything you needed to know from how to communicate with your people to get the best results. And that's what I mean by, making everyone feel seen and heard so they can contribute to the greater good of the organization.
Nice. So you're engaging everyone.
Yes.
So from your experience, would you say, because I've heard this said before, that many people will work for public recognition before they'd work for a dollar? Would you say that is true? Is that something you...
That is partially true. It goes back to recognition. How do people like to be recognized? Not everyone likes to be, highlighted or spotlight on them for saying, great job, Kirk, you did a nice job. Maybe you don't like that spotlight on you, that, feel kind of, you don't like all the attention. Maybe you like to win, and we can make you a team leader or something, and your team won, and then you feel like you got that recognition.
So as a leader, then, you're not thinking linearly, you're thinking geometrically, you're thinking in bunches of directions. That's
correct.
Nice. Nice. So for someone who's thinking, how is the bottom line of this really going to affect me? Let's take it out of retail and business. Let's apply this maybe to leadership in a healthcare situation where, like in my case, I was running a practice and I had a couple of massage therapists, I had a front desk receptionist, I had someone else doing therapies. How is that going to be beneficial for me to have taken this course? How can you help me there?
We'd have to talk about what do you want your results to be? Do you want everything to be flowing nicely when you're in the office and when you're not in the office? Do you want your patients to be treated very kindly so that they get, that then reflects on you? Oh, I loved going to Dr. Kirk Weber's office because the receptionist greets me, they offer me coffee. That all makes a difference in how the customer feels and your reviews. So you have to make a decision. Do you want just a nice office environment, or do you want your customers to feel that positivity from the office? And based on those two different outcomes, then you know what you need to do. If you want to focus on a smoothly run office, make sure that the receptionist, because she's the one, he or she is the person that sees everything.
First face.
Yes. And they kind of run behind the scenes and in the office. So you want to make sure that that person is feeling like they're contributing. They know that they kind of run the show, and you're giving them the kudos and the recognition that they want, the way they want to receive it. Maybe they really like a Starbucks gift card. And when they do something really great, hey, thank you so much for what you did.
Tamika, that sounds like an awful lot for the leader to keep in mind as they're doing the tasks that are just generally there to keep it going. What kind of tools do you have or do you recommend that someone who's in that position use? Is there a way they can keep it organized and keep it all?
So what I heard you say was, and I want to make sure that we didn't miss anything here. What I heard you say was that the let's say if this is your office and you're in a healthcare facility, that you have all these other things to do, and you're saying this is like you're adding something on top of it. Is that what I heard you say?
And making sure that it gets done right, but yes.
Okay. That's where the misconception comes in.
Okay.
This goes back to your first question. You're not adding anything on top of it. You're actually taking things off your plate because you're incorporating everyone to contribute to the greater good of the office. So where you feel like you may need to do certain things, delegate that to someone else and say, this is the system that I'd like, or the process that I'd like you to follow, and then hand it over to the administrator or the secretary so that everyone, it's a well-oiled machine.
So as a leader then, I would have to be able to let go, and I would have to be able to give someone else the power and the authority to act.
Empowering.
That's hard to do, I think, for me.
It doesn't have to be. Here's why. If your training never ends. Leadership is training.
Right.
You're training your people, like when you bring on a new staff member.
Right.
You train them, right?
Right.
Or whether you give them a lot of training or no training at all, there should be a process. There should be steps to take to get them onboarded. And what you're doing is you're constantly training as a leader. It never ends. So instead of just training them one time and hoping that they got it, which they don't because people forget.
Right.
So your job as the leader is to continuous training.
So some of this would be step back and revisit.
You're always training. So if we're going through a training process of this is how we treat our patients. Once the patient comes back to the room, this is how we process the patient, essentially. Everyone is working together.
So they each have a system. The
Yes.
systems integrate. We check back. So you're going to be using in your, however often that you're advising people to meet, to have their own indicators that are going to be fed.
Yes.
How does that look on a day-to-day operation then? Is there something that each I'll call them, for a lack of a better term, sub-leader would have that they're using as a guide? Or is that coming out of the empowerment?
So essentially, in a healthcare office, I would think, I've never worked in this type of environment, but I would think that the doctor is, your name's on the building.
Right.
Okay? So you're the person in charge. However, your secretary would then be your personal assistant, essentially, without the title.
Right.
So everything runs through that person. They're the center of it all. And they report to you.
Okay.
So it's their job to make sure that everyone else is flowing.
So in essence then, for me as the leader, I'm bringing all this together, but on the feedback, on the return side,
Yes.
I'm getting a condensed checklist report that allows me to steer the ship.
That's it.
Can you relate some of what this is all about for us, Tamika, on how this fits with other aspects of life that you can make use of some of these tools? Does this cross over into any place else that you could use this information?
I'm so glad you asked. I recently had a situation where I'm very involved with my children's sports activities. I have twin boys. One of them is a soccer player, they're 15, and one of them is a wrestler. I've been on the wrestling board for 3 seasons as the treasurer, and this last wrestling season, which started November of 2025, a few days before the season started, the president says, "I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. You're the only board member."
Oh, snap.
And me having been in leadership, I stepped up to the plate. After I took 10 minutes and
Yeah, I would think.
I had that moment of like, okay, I can do this. I've done it before. I can do this. And so what I did was immediately I started to look at the parents. Who could I have as my right hand? Because you've got to have someone to back you up and to just be your vice president or whatever. And so I called one of the parents. First person I called said, "Sure, I would love to."
Nice.
Okay, now we've got a board. We've got the new board. But it was a great opportunity. It was such a blessing. And I mean, once you have to get systems in place. And once you get those systems, like just making sure like tournaments are planned. We make sure that we have concession stands set up. That's all the job of the board. And so, making sure that we know what we're doing, who's doing what, when, all of that. And just once we get those systems set up, the processes, and it could be something as simple as, okay, we're having concession stands, so we're gonna go to make a Costco run. We're gonna get water, soda, chips, beef jerky, whatever you're selling, a few sugary snacks, and then you just slap some prices on it. So you're making a bit of a profit, and then that goes to the boosters. And we with that, we're able to buy singlets and shoes and headgear for the wrestlers and things like that. So
you were able to draw then from your Nordstrom's education.
That's where it started.
And you were able to put this to use.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't take on the entire, if I'm understanding what I'm hearing, I want to make sure that I'm clear.
Yeah.
But you were able to take that education, you were able to then, as the leader, recognize, okay, we're going to have a concession stand.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't have to get down and dirty and say, buy 10 of these, 4 of those, 6 of that.
Yeah.
You were able to delegate out,
Mm-hmm.
here's the money, go get what we need for this.
Yes.
You are the person who's going to be in charge of this, in charge of that. So you only had 5 or 6 things to really think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
just make sure that it all happened.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful concept. I like that.
It is. And it works in all aspects. Like here we were in a retail situation where I learned the basics, how to make it run smoothly. And then we applied that to Wrestling Boosters Club, the soccer club, whatever it may be in the household.
Yes. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So do you touch on in your course characteristics that the leader should have as a personal characteristic?
I really, I like to keep things simple, Kirk.
Okay.
And when I say I'm going to translate characteristics to leadership is not stressful. It should not be. At its best, if everything is optimal and you get your systems down, you're training your people, everything is in place. Everybody knows what they're doing and how they're contributing. The leader should be able to focus on the business, not in the business.
Okay.
And that's important because you should be able to see everybody doing what they're supposed to and be like, they're good.
So at the end of 6-8 months after taking this course, you're going to be able to take someone like me, who is an admitted control freak. Okay.
Yeah.
I like to dictate every last detail. I learned this from my daddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the way I was brought up. So you're going to be able to convert me into a higher functioning, a better leader, a more productive leader, a more productive business, because I take that.
Yes. So what we would do, and here to take things further, there's the course, which will give you so much value, and learn how to take your day-to-day tasks and break those down into, if you had to train someone, what would that look like? And that gets you thinking, okay, this is my process. It can be so simple. Keep it simple. It doesn't have to be difficult. And then once we break down the day-to-day activities, well, now you're seeing people doing things the way you want them done. So now you can be like, oh, that was easy. So the point that I'm trying to make is, once you've done the course, where it really gets exciting, and this is the for best results, you want to do the one-on-one coaching with me, because that way I can share my experiences, like the wrestling boosters story.
Yes.
Because I've been in those situations where you're like, you only gave me two days notice, and I've seen her the whole summer.
Right.
But that's where we get to do a little bit of storytelling. We get to clarify, like you'll have very clear vision as to how you want your business or your organization to run.
Well, that sounds super valuable. And I'm not saying this just because I'm your business partner. I'm saying this from someone who ran a business for 45 years.
Yeah.
And I had none of those experiences, Tamika. I had to kind of fumble my way through on my own, and how valuable this would have been. But not only for the course, I think the one-on-one coaching, to refine it, to tailor it, to bring it in and make it absolutely as personal as you can, I think would really be a benefit, especially for those who are starting off running their own small business, because I know from my own education, they taught me how to be a chiropractor. They didn't teach me a stinking thing about how to run a business.
No.
And that's valuable stuff. This is going to be an awesome course.
It is.
It is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that means that this is not going to be goodbye.
Yeah.
This is going to be
See you next time. Cheers.